In the late 1700s, electricity was becoming increasingly common. People flocked from all around and waited for hours to get to experience an electric shock, which was viewed as the height of entertainment at the time. Since they had never been exposed to it before, people were very sensitive to its effects. And for decades before the portable battery was invented, and electricity had a practical use, the vast majority of research on the topic was about the effect it had on the human body. Besides the exhilarating and slightly painful electric shock, increased heart rate, lightheadedness, sweating, feelings of unease, and nervousness were all reported from exposure to very weak electric currents. These people living at the end of the 1700s and the beginning of the 1800s had experienced a time without exposure to man-made electricity and were able to note the changes they felt. As one researcher put it, modern man trying to study the health effects of electrical exposure is like a fish trying to study the effects of water. We have no control, no frame of reference to compare to, because we've all been swimming in the electrical field our entire lives. Our ancestors living at the turn of the 19th century were acutely aware of the effect that very weak electrical currents had on their body. This raises the question. We are exposed to a far greater amount of electricity on a daily basis than our ancestors would have been in their entire life. Why don't we feel any effect? This can easily be explained once one understands the law of vital adaptation, as the great Hilton Hotema laid out in Man's Higher Consciousness. The human body is incredibly adaptable and will change to survive practically any harmful influence. This law can be seen in how humans can consume drugs, harmful foods, and breathe polluted air in increasing amounts, and yet the body will still find homeostasis and survive. As Hilton Hotema put it, the young man coughs smoking his first cigarette. After a while, he doesn't cough anymore, until years later when he coughs blood. The body will adapt to be able to survive any harmful influence, but the catch is, it does so at the cost of a reduced vitality. This is why we do not report the acute symptoms of electrical exposure the way our ancestors did. We don't feel it because our bodies were forced to adapt to it to continue to live. Our nervous system is an unimaginably complex network of both chemical and electromagnetic signal transport. It can be disrupted both chemically or electromagnetically. My dad and I both personally experienced chemical disruption of the nervous system when we were exposed to glyphosate, which is an incredibly common weed killer. We all experience chemical disruption of the nervous system to some extent, depending on how much environmental toxins and herbicides and pesticides we're exposed to. Likewise, we're all exposed to electromagnetic disruption of the nervous system, depending on our sensitivity and our level of exposure. Let us return again to the question, why don't we feel the acute symptoms of electrical exposure the way our ancestors did? Well, consider this. In the mid to late 1800s, as telegraph machines became more common and railroads ran under powerful electric power lines, a new disease was sweeping the world. It was termed neurasthenia, and its symptoms included anxiety, general discomfort, faintness, heart palpitations, and others. It disproportionately affected people who worked in proximity to electricity, like telegraph operators and railroad workers. Leading researchers at the time were starting to narrow down the cause to the increasingly vast web of electricity, which in hindsight is quite obvious. But the now pop culture icon, Sigmund Freud, immortalized for his strange psychosexual theories, had his own explanation. Since there was no clear cause for these symptoms, it must simply have been the result of a disordered mind and out-of-control emotions, essentially saying to the millions who suffered from physical symptoms, at the time it was the most commonly reported disease, it's all in your head. Freud renamed neurasthenia anxiety disorder, and its symptoms anxiety attacks, what we now call panic attacks. This explanation, which was quite convenient for the now Leviathan electrical industry, was quickly accepted in the West. Anxiety disorder is still one of the most commonly reported ailments in the world. In the East, however, Russia, China, and Japan, Freud's work was not accepted, and under the direction of Ivan Semenov, an influential Russian psychologist, an environmental cause was blamed for these symptoms. In Russia, anxiety disorder is still termed neurasthenia and is understood to be caused by environmental stressors such as electromagnetic frequencies. So while we may not feel it as acutely as our ancestors once did, electromagnetic frequencies still affect our complex and adaptable, yet nonetheless sensitive bodies. The number one thing you can do to support your body from the bombardment of electromagnetic frequencies is to get grounded as often as possible. This discharges positive ions that build up in the body from technology use and from being surrounded by a vast and expanding smart grid. It gives nature a chance to harmonize your frequency with the earth. Another important and incredibly healthy thing you can do is juice fast, which gives your body a chance to detox heavy metals and other contaminants which pick up on the ambient frequencies and can resonate them within your body. Ultimately, the cure for unnatural man-made problems are natural, divinely made ones. Spending time in nature, deep breathing, and stopping intake of harmful influences, even on a short-term basis, gives your body a much-needed break, an opportunity to achieve homeostasis and cleanse itself. The information in this video concerning electricity and its history came from the book The Electric Rainbow: A Brief History of Life and Electricity, and the information about the law of vital adaptation came from Man's Higher Consciousness by Hilton Otema. Both are great books which I recommend to learn more about the human body and how to be free, healthy, and happy in this modern world. Now that we know better, we have to do better. As we learn the sources of toxins and harmful influences to the body and our environment, we have to do our best to eliminate them. To be truly free and happy in this world, we have to develop discipline and awareness, both of which come through consistency. Implementing and practicing healthy habits such as daily cold showers, deep breathing, spending time in nature, exercising, making better dietary choices, all contribute to developing discipline and awareness and liberating yourself from all the negative influences in this modern world that would keep us a slave. Thank you for watching, and now go be the change you want to see in the world, and know that the wisdom and the inspiration of the Almighty govern your life through divine love.